Hi, my name's Eastop. I'm the director of Eastop Architects. We're an architecture studio, predominantly working in Melbourne and on the Wellington Peninsula. As an architecture studio, we're interested in the spatial experience of architecture. And today we're presenting our presentation for Elm Tree Place, which has been shortlisted for the interior architecture category and also the residential alterations and additions. Elm Tree Place was actually originally designed by Nonda Katsoulidis in the mid-1980s, and we took on the project, I guess, as a new subdivision, splitting an existing commercial building into two new residences. The project site is located close to the Melbourne CBD and Carlton Gardens, as you can see with the white dot. In terms of the subject site, you can see Drummond Street, Elm Tree Place. And at the subject site here, you can see the subdivision to the front of the dwelling, which is the original Victorian building. And then you can see predominantly a lot of the Nonda Katsoulidis addition to the rear, which is sort of our subject site and where the subdivision and split occurred. The yellow indicates the light court, which we utilise to bring light into both dwellings and create the main separation. In terms of the existing conditions, you can kind of see here that a lot of the elemental form, sort of shared courtyard, and I guess the one thing that was sort of disappointing, I guess, for a project like this is that the existing conditions were in a pretty poor state and basically kind of decayed. So we had to sort of understand that before moving through. Internally, the project when we had started had already been sort of demolitioned or stripped out. There wasn't really too much left, except for some of the glazing, some of the steel detailing still did exist, but a lot of the fit out had been stripped out prior. In terms of analysing existing conditions, we were interested in taking some extractions from the project, looking and exploring sort of subtle details, the materiality, understanding the elemental form and the elemental relationships between elements, and then also understanding the constraints of light for the project site itself. In terms of the demolition, you can see in the red the predominant amounts of demolition for the project. The red dashed line indicates kind of the boundary conditions, and the front portion of the project is stage 2, which is to occur later on this year. The level 1, you can kind of see that we started to be careful of the amount of demolition in terms of dealing with budget. So we did demo quite a bit, but it was also about insertions within those spaces. This is the rear elevation of Elm Tree Place, the existing conditions to the left and the demolition sort of required to open up to allow the new entrance from Elm Tree Place to occur, the new front facade to the right. This is an internal elevation of the courtyard space, the reds indicating demolition works, opening up, removing elements, replacing certain elements as needed. The lower panel is the proposed conditions, the blue being an element dealing with overlooking to do with council setbacks between the dwellings, and then also the fire rating issues with the new glass block facade and some rendered textured walls. In terms of spatial tactics, this is our sort of approach to the project. We really wanted to create a controlled sense of light, use translucent materials to create depth, bridging details between the Nonda Katsoulidis edition and our own kind of approach to the project. And then also an idea of spatial extension, so using mirroring to create depth within spaces, and also highlighting the elemental kind of formal language, which is something we observed and were kind of fascinated by for the project. In terms of material interactions, you can see there the green and black marble. That was an existing material which helped to sort of form the basis of the darker palette. We sort of drew all our materials back to that. And then we sort of explored the darker palette with its consideration to reflectivity and how darkness can actually still move light through space. These are the proposed plans for the project. So from left to right, moving through an entry sequence into a garage to cloakroom to gallery to master bedroom beyond and a hidden laundry. You can also see the kind of internal courtyard relationships on the ground floor. The mezzanine level is located above the garage, which is just quite a simple space. And then moving up to the level 1 plan where you've got living, dining, a series of insertions and cuts in the kitchen. The section shows a great relationship between all the spaces and the stacking of new function. These are the sections for the project. You can see the pool void, which is sort of something we had to deal with, an existing pool structure on the level 1, the entrance and the gallery sequence. You can also see really clearly the definition between the front dwelling being the courtyard area and then the master bedroom and the glass block facade connecting the two, acting as the fire break, but also controlling light. Some construction photos as we sort of dealt with existing conditions, opening up the structure to allow for new beams, new circulation, reconfiguring, and really there was a lot of existing structure which was unknown, and we sort of had to step through the project as we went. Existing foundations which sort of required underpinning, framing works as we pulled things apart, and then also trying to preserve elements which we thought were necessary or offered really true value to the project. So that's a portion of the powder room being cut into the space. As we went through the project on site, you can kind of see here demolition to then understanding through sketches to then the actual build outcome. And a lot of the project was sort of dealt with these sort of high detailed focused snippets of information as we kind of proceeded through. This is a northern elevation where we didn't really do much except for repainting works and rectifying the wall, which was actually starting to collapse. This is the internal courtyard, overlooking of the elemental paneling, the black panels. You can kind of start to see the relationships of the glass block facade and the rendered wall. The lower sections are all part of stage 1 or stage 2, sorry, works. So that's not actually completed, so we sort of avoided that as part of the presentation. This is the elemental facade, so we still really wanted to maintain the elemental qualities of some of the existing conditions from the Nonda edition. So the facade is actually oiled mild steel, and then there's a concealed web forged kind of great elemental entrance into the property. Moving into the entrance sequence, we were sort of interested in this being sort of a sequence of light or a sort of a portal entrance into the space. So it's I guess like it's a glass cube as you move through with mirrors, allowing structure to be hidden beyond. Similar approach for the garage and trying to create depth within spaces. So there's mirrored paneling with operable pivot doors which conceal storage and the water tank beyond. The main entrance, again, elemental within the interior spaces. So this is the main passageway through into the house with sort of glass steel, looking back beyond into the Elm Tree Place facade to the right. So the lower landing, that glass, footer glass door is actually an entrance to a laundry which is hidden within the project. And to the right is the vertical light void which carries through. And again, 2 images of that looking upwards and down. This is the master bedroom, the large door sort of acting as a diffuser of light because it's quite powerful coming through from the glass block wall. And then we've also got this filtered light coming through from the skylight beyond, where we really wanted to texture that wall up to sort of control and amplify the sort of experience. The master ensuite, which is sort of I guess you could call it an insertion into the space. Again, just trying to sort of fold elements within and try and make them as if they were always meant to sort of be there was our main goal for the project. And this is also carrying in light into that space, and where you can sort of see there's a door there to the laundry on the left image to the far right. So that was all kind of considered as one form folding through. This is to the mezzanine bedroom on the upper level, a smaller space where we sort of utilise circulation to contain wardrobes, maximising height wherever we could, extending to concrete ceiling in those spaces, and then a similar sort of approach to the bathroom, but a new configuration. Moving upwards, trying to maintain some of the existing qualities which we thought were really fine and beautiful, such as sort of the balustrade. There were a few little light apertures. Looking through to the living room beyond on the right image from the kitchen. The kitchen was sort of a space of gathering, so we sort of chose to make this space a focal point for sort of a larger group. So it's quite an oversized bench where you could kind of congregate around and sort of experience this space as sort of a nighttime kind of environment. We use sort of a steel kind of custom joinery unit to conceal lighting, but also the range hood behind, and then where that textured wall is, you're sort of looking down to the master bedroom. This is a look through from the dining room, the skylights, textured wall, and another view looking at the powder room through the batten wall beyond to the master bedroom. And then I guess this idea of elemental detail across all scales. So we were really interested in carrying the focus of the elemental throughout, not just the architectural language, the interior language, but also the finer detailing as well. So this is, I guess you could call it blade of marble, blade of mirror, blade of tiles, all separated between one another. A view from the living room through to dining, from living room to terrace. Another shot of the living room, sort of looking at that aperture of the wall and a balance of form and shape. And I guess this is sort of a summary of maybe the starting point of the project being the floor, and then these insertions being the powder room, alterations to existing walls. You can see some mirroring occurring on the right of this image, which is actually a reflection back behind all the panelling of joinery to the landscape garden terrace beyond that. In terms of a project which we thought sort of has a bit of significance for the Architecture Awards, and hopefully it goes well, is Housing Choices in Dandenong by Kennedy Nolan. This project, I guess to us as a studio, sort of highlights quality architecture from an architect's point of view, but also from a client's perspective, sort of allowing to sort of challenge our perceptions of maybe what a multi-res complex or building could be. I think the graphic and formal language of the project is extremely confident, and I think sometimes quite challenging to get across the line with a client. So I think it's quite commendable that they were able to sort of achieve that. And just as a balanced project, it just feels really right. So I think formally, I think it's quite exciting, and moving through and thinking about the people who would actually utilise and use this accommodation. I think it's actually really exciting that they're having access to a high or very high level of architectural sort of resolution and space making and form making, which is actually quite hard to get across the line to people who are paying top dollar. So I think that's really well done. So thank you, and thanks for allowing us to present Elm Tree Place for the awards this year. Thank you.